So, Sean's, where are you, Sean? You're in the Midwest somewhere, right?
Yes, I am near the border of Illinois and Indiana. So I have a house on the Illinois side, but my family kind of lives across the Indiana border. So the plan is to really get the house sold and then move over close to that area. But yeah, that's basically where I'm at, kind of like the central Illinois near the border.
Hey, just a second. Kurt, did Pete Memmer ever contact you? Because he had to kind of join in on the call if he could at some point.
No, nothing I'm aware
of. I could go call him real quick if you're. Hello, do we have a lot of people going on, or?
I've got 10 people.
Oh, okay. Well, wow. I'll talk to him about maybe next week or something.
This is Greg. Yeah, it's kind of hard minute of to add people because there's a couple of steps.
He had just mentioned something, but I'll talk to him later. Hey, Greg.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Hello, Greg. Nice to meet you. I'm Sean.
Sean, nice to meet you, Sean. Kurt, Eric.
Greg, we finally touched base. I'm happy about that.
Yeah, missed a couple of times there.
Yeah.
Is Tim and Darcy and Debbie going to be on today? Do you know?
All I can do is invite people. I'm hoping they are, but
well, I had asked them to look at something and last week, and so it'd be an interesting thing to get their take on if they did it. That was going to be part of what I was talking about today, but that's okay. We'll run with it one way or the other.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, maybe if I lower this, I got it on top of my red dictionary, so it's kind of elevated a bit.
The Klein's dictionary is elevated above all the rest. That's true.
Yes, it's a very helpful tool for sure. Here we go.
Hey, Greg's even got the tropics in the background there.
Oh yeah,
here in South Florida.
Wow. I was just talking to Jesse Running Bear. He's in Florida right now. Are you familiar with him?
What, his name's Jesse?
Jesse Running Bear, B-E-A-R.
I don't think so.
I was just talking to him the other day. He was meeting up with some other folks down in Florida. I think he said it was down near Sarasota.
Okay, yeah, that's on the other coast. I'm on the East Coast.
Eric, yeah. What are we talking about today? Sorry, I just want to change my background.
Well, that stuff. Boy, this is
awesome.
Meaning of the letters and why doing this, and oh, there they are.
Good morning. Tim. Tim's stepped out for a second. He'll be back.
Okay. So, Kurt, I sent you a link to something called Human. Did you happen to see that?
I was just watching it before we started. Yep.
So just so you know, I just happened to stumble across that, and I'm a little bit of a film buff, you might say, not in the normal way, but my objective back in the 80s was to get a master's degree in film at UCLA. And so I have this interest in the media, the art. The power of film is pretty big, and in that it takes sculpt. Painting, you might say, is two-dimensional. There's some weird noises. Somebody's mic in the background, just so you know.
Somebody's got their volume up a little loud. It's just making an echo chamber.
Yeah, I know. I was just letting people know for the sake of.
It's best if people have headphones to use them, unless, well, for Tim's area, Tim's got his microphone on mute, so it doesn't matter.
Oh, hang on.
Well, anyway, what I'm saying about this film called Human, just Human, is that it's a very interesting piece of art, and there was one version of it where they extracted the music and had the visuals, which is its own impact. And then I saw that there was a what they called a director's cut with Italian words, where they interviewed a bunch of people from all around the world. And then there was an English version, an extended 2 parts. Depending on what you look at, if it's perhaps just the music one, I'll elaborate later on why I'm mentioning this, but I just brought it up because I'm not, you might say, condoning any philosophy in the movie, but I'm in talking about these letters and this subject. That movie is a very pertinent, you might say, just display of what it is to be human, regardless of religion, politics, status of economic wealth or labor or religion or anything else. Just so people know why I'm even mentioning it. I don't know anything about the people that put on that movie, nor did I watch the second part, nor am I trying to promote anybody else's agenda other than the regard of the Paleo Hebrew. But that being said, is why I had an interest in whether Debbie and Darcy and Tim had a chance to contemplate the orthography of these letters during the week. Did you guys get a chance to do that? Your mic's off still.
Just briefly looked at them. I haven't really meditated on it as much as I would have liked. But Tim did. He just came in the door now.
Oh, okay, great.
He's the diligent one.
Yes.
So he'll sit with it.
You want to sit here, Tim, in the middle, or?
Yeah.
Morning.
Wherever you want.
Go ahead.
Hey, Eric. Is Kurt there too?
Yep, I'm right here.
Yeah, hi, Tim.
Hi. Oh, you guys are really small here.
So shall we jump right in?
May as well.
Full screen.
Well, Mark,
Well,
you
Mark,
want to do the honors and open up with a, you might say the call out, the shout out to Elohim to see if he'll please be participant in and Baruch our meeting here.
Could you,
Who did you ask to do that?
Mark,
Oh,
just
okay.
because
Thank you, Heavenly Father, for
he
this
just
opportunity.
walked in the door, so.
Thank you, Heavenly Father, for this opportunity, and I do count it as an opportunity, Father, to get together to glorify your holy name. May everything we say and discuss today not only glorify your name, but touch the people's heart that are listening to us today, that they can see that we are teaching the words of love of the Father, not any hatred, not any animosity towards any other people. We just want to show them the love that you have for all of us. So in your precious holy name, Father, we ask that you watch over us as we discuss your word. Amen.
Amen.
The phrase "It Kadosh Shemka" comes up. The "Hallowed be thy name" in, you might say, King James English, or "Bless your holy name." Kurt, you had a couple weeks ago put up a version of the Lord's Prayer written in Hebrew, a version of the written in modern Hebrew, but it was a different phrasing. And maybe you could put that up as a link, or maybe you already have. But the reason I'm mentioning this is because Mark just mentioned your holy name. There's a road down the street here at what used to be Merrillhurst College in Portland, Oregon, called Holy Names Boulevard or Road. And the idea that holy names, we've talked about how the 4-letter name, Hebrew letters Yud He Vav He, is so holy, sacred, unpronounceable that it's been hidden, whether by mandate, decree, law, tradition, rabbinical order, or just forgotten for centuries, at least 2,300 years since Ptolemy II had the Septuagint written in approximately 285 BC. So the Greek version of the Hebrew scriptures eradicated the 4-letter name, and it's been said that nobody knows how to say it. And if I've heard it said that if a Jewish person says it, or at least in the past, if a Jewish person said it, they could be put to death. And that the reason Yeshua was ultimately crucified was because he mentioned the name. And that's where he's reported to have said the words "I am" in English in the gospel narrative when he was standing before Caiaphas, the high priest, and Caiaphas ripped his garments and said, "There, what more do we need to prosecute?" He has expressed the inutterable name as a capital offense. And the thing is, there's at least three different ways to say "I am." There's ani, there's anoki, and there's ehie. None of those are the four-letter tetragrammaton Yahuwah, but there's ehie. Well, that's at the burning bush where Elohim said ehie asher ehie. That's aleph hey yod hey. That's not the same as yod hey vav hey. But what I'm saying is that there's this concept that I've tried to promote, is that the name Ha-Shem, the name Ha-Shem, the letter He means the as a prefix, and then Shem means name, but it also means fame, place, renown, reputation. It's translated on one occasion the word here and also the word there. So I'm suggesting that the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet is actually the Shem of Elohim. This is where he's at. To know these 22 letters. So the Kadosh Shem is not, do you know how to pronounce the four-letter name, but the Kadosh Shem is to comprehend not only what these letters are, but what they mean, and that they're self-expressive in their orthography. They speak for themselves. The reason I use the paleo as a letter shape is because it's what I would call elegant, which is to say simple, unadorned, not artistically modified with flair and flourish, fancy doodads attached to the letters to make them look prettier, like what maybe a calligrapher might want to do. Got a backwards Nun Summit going on up there for summer. There it is. Anyway, so that when you put up the version of the Tefillah Abenu, the prayer, our Father, not of our Father, to our Father, La Abenu. Anyway, it's just called the Lord's Prayer. And you put it up in strange paleo. It's a form of ancient Hebrew, but the question is, where is the value or where is the sacredness in any of these letters? I'm not claiming that the shape of these letters is sacred. I believe the modern Hebrew that the Jews use, and they're not necessarily the only ones that use it, but it's basically their language, their letter set. When I say their, that's one of those gross misgeneralizations. We're not bashing any religion or ethnic group or political or ideology for the sake of saying that. It's just a matter of pointing in a direction, like north, south, east, west. No, it's like, okay, red, yellow, black, and white. You've got four basic groups of people's skin color, or four different directions of the compass. It's not to disparage anybody. It's for the sake of general identification in four basic camps. So to say that the Jews use the modern language, I heard a head rabbi of London give a talk, and he said it was actually the language, the Hebrew language, which was the common link of all Jews around the world. So if we're promoting use of the language, that throws us in with that group of people who are of that mind, of that heart, of that, well, a language drives a culture. So it's not just an ideology, a philosophy, a religion, a politic. It's a culture. So for us to say in the Tefillah Benu, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven, we're requesting or we're declaring that the kingdom of Elohim should appear and manifest on the face of the earth. Did somebody want to say something? Oh, I was hearing some noises. So the question is, if the kingdom of heaven were to manifest on the face of the earth, what would it look like? What effect would it have on the world, on our personal consciousness? There's something going on these days, I don't know if you're aware of it, within certain, call it a church mind, that there's this thing called the church age, which has persisted for at least a few hundred years, if not 2,000 years, and is now fading, transitioning into what's called the kingdom age. I've heard a number of people mention this. What does that mean? That means that there's a certain, call it a dispensation, if you want to be dispensationally indexed, a phase, a time, an era, where the church doing its church thing, whatever that means, if there's 50,000 different denominations, and who knows even how to identify what that is. But there was a phase, a dispensation, a time, an era when the church was doing a certain thing, and certain people are saying now that is closing out and a new era is upon us, which is called the kingdom age, a kingdom consciousness, a different perspective. The people that go to church may still be involved, but it's a different sort of thing. Now, I'm not going to take the time to identify that, other than to say, if the letters of the Hebrew alphabet is what drives the consciousness of the kingdom of heaven or the kingdom of Elohim, apparently two different matters, kingdom of God versus kingdom of heaven, whatever. If this is Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh's name, Yahuwah, Yahuwah's name, written in the four colors, blue, purple, red, white, with gold, on the embroidery of the gate, on the embroidery of the priest's garments, then whatever his kingdom is what this is about. So therefore, looking at these letters is, as it were, as I mentioned the other week or so ago, a Merkabah, a chariot by which we transport, we teleport, we engage the link, the Vav, the bridge between earth consciousness and kingdom of Yahuwah consciousness, which is to say his frame of mind and his heart. So I mentioned this film called The Human a few minutes ago. Very interesting thing about what the filmmakers have done is that there's a number of interviews with people. But if you watch just the music version, somebody has made a smaller film out of it and extracted. There's drone camera shots of different places around the world, and there's quite a few pictures of just somebody's face like this, looking into the camera, just looking into the camera, not saying anything, maybe not smiling, and you have to just stare at that person's face, which we don't often have opportunity to do. And they're just looking at, what does it mean to be human? Here's people from all different cultures, all different ages, all different races, all different languages. And then in the full-length version of this movie, they ask people about love and about labor and about just what it means to be human, the struggles of humanity, and to realize, in spite of any language, we all have similar struggles. But I'll tell you, living in America, Western Hemisphere, North America, is, when you look what some people put up with in the rest of the world, it's an astounding privilege, blessing, opportunity to be able to live in this country in this era. This neck of the woods of North America, even. Some of the things people were saying is that poverty and hunger scrambles your mind. You can't think of anything else. And one lady was saying how her job was to inspect empty bottles 12 hours a day, sometimes from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. or 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. every day. The most important thing in her life is to look at an empty bottle and make sure it's empty. And the next one, and the next one. And she better not be wrong, and she better be quick about it. Her whole life is inspecting empty bottles. That's enough to drive you insane. There's other people talking about they'd like to work if they can find work, but they can't find work. One lady was saying how when they have no food, she's found that if she finds a rat hole, she could take a little bag and go to the rat hole and pick out kernels of rice. And when her bag is full, she can take it home and cook it and eat it in a rat hole. And God is faithful to her in that he always lets her find enough rice that she can eat for her and her family. Do you have any idea how much food is thrown away, garbaged in the United States? There was a wonderful restaurant called Sweet Tomatoes, and they made these big vats of soup and all this fresh produce. We got there near closing one time, and they were still making food. And then it's like, wow, what do you do with all this food? Oh, they dump it down the drain. It's like, dump it down the drain. Couldn't you give it to the homeless or something? No, somebody in Texas got sick once, and I'm not sure if they died, but they made a law that everything must be disposed of, thrown away. You can't give it to anybody because somebody might get sick and then sue. Who? Sue the FDA or the government for anyway. So here you got some people searching rat holes for grains of rice, and in the United States, we just dump it by the ton. Anyway, what I'm saying is, what does it mean to be human? And then when you see these other people's faces just sitting there staring at you, and you realize what I'm saying by this language is that these letters in the Hebrew language cut through the veil of culture, of hunger, of slavery, of wealth, of any mind, and it penetrates to the core of being human, and it links the human being with Ehyeh, the creator of human consciousness, the creator of the entire universe, the creator of this language, and that there's something about the shape of these letters, the orthography of the Paleo-Hebrew, which transcends any division between humans and between humans versus the Elohim, the whoever is up there that is guiding or responsible for all this. That's a preposterous statement to make. That's outrageous. That's beyond extraordinary. It's outlandish. It might even be tomfoolery, by gum. So, Tim, when I asked you and Debbie and Darcy to look at the letters last week, it's using you as an experimental lab rat of some sort and say, could you see something? Now, you happen to be, I could make generalizations about your skin color. Perhaps you're wearing eyeglasses, so you have a certain privilege, or you can afford glasses, or maybe you were educated enough to read that you actually want to see something, that you're not just a slave carrying pieces of rocks or whatever it might be, that people in the world don't have. So it's, to be fair, when you do a statistical analysis, you have to take such a broad range of a subject group that you take every possible variegation into consideration to get a random sample, which is never purely random. But what I'm saying is that to ask you a question is not necessarily typical of anybody else in the world, but you're just a random man on the street interview. But just to say, what can you articulate? Did you see, or did you try the experiment of just staring at the letters and writing down what came to mind? Did you get through the whole alphabet, or could you tell us of your exercise?
I just looked at Aleph, and it took me a long time to, the shape of it, and I guess it kind of skewed my thought on it because I've heard so much of your teaching. But Aleph, the Paleo Aleph, the more rounded one, I thought it to me, it how do I explain it? The heart of Yahweh. It's his heart for us. It was, and because you said it's the plan, Aleph is the plan, and it's his desire to have a relationship with us. So basically, it looked like to me when I look at the Aleph, I see the heart of Yahweh was the main thing that came out. Other things was kind of the pointed one kind of looks like a rocket ship or something that's coming down. But to me, the strongest image I have of the Aleph was the heart of Yahweh.
I could even, if I chose to look at this Aleph, when he's saying the rounded one, it's got this version isn't perfectly straight lines, but I could see that these are maybe like the shape of the human heart, almost kind of like this rounded triangle with aortas and various veins and arteries coming off it. I could see that. But the interesting thing is, had you ever thought of the Aleph as the heart of Yahuwah before? Did you think of that when you see the letter Aleph?
I never did, no.
Okay, so just looking at the one letter and the effect of that contemplation, I would expect that evermore from now on, when you see something spelled with the letter Aleph, you will either consciously, intentionally, or subconsciously take that into consideration as a tint affecting your interpretation of the word, whatever it is that's spelled with that letter.
Definitely, yeah.
So what I've found over the years is that as you do that with each letter, it has that same effect. What I'm suggesting is that it doesn't matter what age, race, ethnic, culture, national, religious, that human beings are actually, you might say, built for their mind to engage these letters. And that the woes or the struggles that were expressed in that film called Human can all be remedied by the contemplation of these Hebrew letters. So there's a certain effort in the world as of about early 1600s or late 1500s. There was an effort that it was illegal to translate the scriptures into English. It was illegal to say the Lord's Prayer or any other sacred text in English. It was considered a pollution, an abomination. And was it Wycliffe or who was the guy that translated the Bible into English out of German or out of Latin? Tyndale. And he was publishing on the sly. They had just invented the printing press not long before. I guess, and I think it was when the Gutenberg Bible was the first thing printed on the printing press, but maybe this was before that. Anyway, he was having people write various pages and versions of English and smuggling them around the world. He was out of, I think it might have been Amsterdam or, well, anyway, someplace over there similar to that. But anyway, they finally had a spy and a betrayer, a man of intrigue, befriend him. And then as they were walking one day, he said, "Oh, hey, let's cut down this alley to get to the place we're headed." And there they jumped on him, grabbed him, beat him up, tortured him, burned him at the stake, all for translating the words into English. And then his work became the basis of the King James translation a few years later to actually give us the Bible in English. 1600s then, 1611, 1609, anyway, 1611, this King James Bible was printed, and now that's the standard by which the Bible is interpreted. And I mentioned before that the Wycliffe Bible translators, I understand, use the Living Word paraphrase version, not even a translation really, of the Bible as the basis by which the Bible is translated into all these other languages around the world, present tense. And that because of economic restrictions, in other words, how much money or time can be spent on any particular language group, there are so many thousands of languages around the world, but that a few hundred have been, at least some. So the Jesus film is the book of Luke translated into a few hundred different languages. So they take the book of Luke, lip sync it, take the Jesus film, and they send it around the world. And then they have been giving people cell phones so they could link it up. The Kolo, K-O-L-O project, I'm not sure if it's still around, if it's being called that, but it was, people could not, even if they're not literate, if they see their flag, they can punch up or hit on the cell phone their flag, and then the various language under that flag come up. And then if they recognize their language, they can click on that. And then the Jesus film comes up in their language. So they can see the book of Luke being expressed, a condensed version, but nevertheless, the verbatim from the book of Luke. They can hear the words of Jesus. And that's about as good as it gets. And in terms of spreading the message that Elohim has to give to humanity on the face of the earth. That message. So I contend with great opposition or contradiction to that effort. I'm not against the effort, but what I'm saying seems contradictory in that if all the languages, all the people groups in the face of the earth could let these 22 letters resonate with their human consciousness, they will hear the voice of Elohim, and not a fake God, not an Elohim Achrim, not a religion, not a man-made doctrine, whatever that might look like, but that something is embedded within the orthography of the Paleo-Hebrew which will speak to the heart, the mind, as it was created from the Creator, who declared himself to be known as both Ehyeh and Yahuwah in Exodus chapter 3 at the burning bush, and that he himself has designed these 22 letters fit like a hand in a glove, or fit to just go perfectly together, what it means to be human, engaging who he is as the Elohim, the creator of humans. And that there's something unique, and there's something powerful, there's something absolutely effective about these 22 letters, that the effort to take these 22 letters and just let them be seen, to be looked at, so that they can be contemplated by any language group, any person scattered across the face of the earth, will have its intended effect that Elohim intended for humans to respond to. And that's an outrageous thing to say. And when I say it's contradictory to the effort of Wycliffe translators, it's not taking Greek, Latin, English, and then a paraphrase of English, the living word, translating that into one of the thousands of various languages that have morphed and permutated since the Tower of Babel so that they can all understand that. It's saying these 22 letters are what was morphed into all that. And if the effort was that these 22 letters could be seen and realized, it would have an effect of changing human mind into a place of sanity and health and aliveness. And when you see that film, Human, a number of people were expressing their frustrations with life and what life has dealt them, or, relationships or marriages, or just having to work for food. It's like, why are we even here? Why are we subject to the various ails and woes and ills and frustrations? And then when you read in Leviticus 26 and Deuteronomy 28, amongst other places, where Yahuwah, the Elohim of Israel, says that he will intentionally send or cause or allow all these struggles and woes to befall his people, the people of Israel, besides just people in general. The struggle, the despair, the great angst. He designed human mind to have hopes and dreams and then to crush them. He designed the human body to have pleasure and then pierce it with pains. That's just life on earth. That's the gamut, the obstacle course. And part of this 22-letter run is that it's the obstacle course of being human on the face of the earth. And for Aleph to be someone somehow from Elohim, whatever that means, to jump down here in a physical body, Bet, gimling through the Dalet of Hay, being born of a woman, as a man who would be put to the weapon. That's just the first 7 letters, and run this gamut in order to produce the breaking out, the Zadi, the resurrection of Yeshua, ascending up to the Resh Sheen status. There's a purpose behind it. And millions of people who have ever walked this earth and who are upon it right now have no idea, no clue. I'm suggesting that what's the treasure that's hidden, buried in these 22 letters, will change the earth, will change individual humans on the face of the earth, and that if they engage the reality that's embedded within these 22 letters, it'll change themselves, to change their behavior, to change their attitude, to change their life essence. And what we're talking about in these talks basically is just trying to express, hey, look, there's something here. And instead of it being, hey, this is mine, this is a buried treasure, you stay back, I'm gonna set up a bunch of obstacles to keep you away, I'm gonna copyright this, I'm gonna own this, I'm gonna make this mine, I'm gonna declare that all you have to stand back unless you give me some money. If you give me money, then I'll give you a little peek. We're trying to say this is essentially free food for all. All those people that are starving to death intellectually, economically, physiologically, it's in this language. This is it. This is the stuff that Yahweh has given, and he, I believe, has given in such a way that he produced the earth in such a way that, remember what Yeshua said? Give and it'll be given unto you. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and overflowing. That's the measure of Yahweh. What you hear spoken in your ear in secret, proclaim as a shofar from the mountaintops. Declare it. That's what we're doing. There's something about Yahuwah's kingdom that if you try to stifle it and own it and retain it and monetize it, it's squelched. But if you unplug the well, the spring, the perpetual, incessant, ever-flowing water of life, Mayim Chayim, there's enough for everybody. Nobody has to take more for themselves so they'll have some tomorrow, or cause somebody else to have less, like there wasn't enough resource to go along. He has provided enough for everybody to have their fill. It's a typical, or it's a picture type of what Rabbi David Foreman was discussing regarding Shavuot with the gathering of manna. This is the festival of the Moed of Shavuot presently right now, 50 days of counting that most people are engaged in. And when they went to go pick up the manna, they were supposed to pick up one, what was called an omer, which was a unit of measure, like a quart or a pint. That now, this is the way he translates it, and it's like, I don't know, I hadn't seen that, but if that's what it is, that's what they say, that whoever gathered more, when he got back, his bag only had an omer in it per person. Whoever gathered less, when he got back, he opened up his bag, there was an omer per person. So no matter what you gathered, whether there was more or less, or whether you couldn't find any, or somebody had all the good stuff and you had to go pick up scraps that were hidden under trees or down rat holes, where do you find the manna if 3 million people have already gathered what's close by? That whenever you got back, in your bag was an omer per day per person. That was a part of the manifest of the miracle. Well, there's something about the study of this language that no matter whether you're intellectually gifted or not, whether you have time or not, whether you're hungry or exhausted, which really does scramble your mind. There's times when I've worked so much I can't even think straight. Fatigued with either labor or not eating or not drinking really messes with your head. You just can't think. You can't study. To be able to study is an extreme privilege. Just to say, for those of you who I'm trying to encourage to say, study this language, I know that not everybody can. We're doing everything we can to put it up and make it available. I think Ghislaine had said a few weeks ago that before she found this particular Erectology study, she had a hunch that there was something about Paleo-Hebrew, but she didn't know where to find it. She didn't know where to look. When I first bumped into this subject matter, Jeff Benner with the ancienthebrew.org, I think is his site, Jeff Benner hadn't even published any books yet. He had an ebook online that a friend of mine found, but back in 2004, you couldn't even find this stuff. And back in the 80s, there was no internet. Imagine that, no cell phones and no internet. You couldn't even find this stuff in a library or an encyclopedia. If you really knew where to look, you couldn't find it. And now it's just, gosh, it's like, why, it's a veritable geyser. Anyway, is there anything you guys wanted to say or talk about in particular? And then, Kurt, there was a particular subject that we were going to bring up, but I just wanted to open up to you guys here before going on much longer. Your mics are off, Tim. I can't hear a word you're saying.
I just asked Debbie and Darcy if they wanted to say anything, but they're no comment.
Not this time.
Shy.
Well, Kurt, there was a particular subject we're going to talk about. Did you have it written down? No, that's okay. I just want to make sure this is not just a monologue by me. I'm trying to open it up to who, if anybody else had a particular. Greg, did you have anything you wanted to say?
Yeah, I mean, I think, touching on what you had mentioned there, just we are flooded with so much knowledge and information in these days. And when you think about the early believers, they weren't walking around with Bibles. They weren't walking around, even in the Catholic Church, I think they weren't even allowed to read scriptures. So sometimes we can be on our high horses and be like, oh, they condemn people for this and condemn people for that, but they didn't have the access. And today we are really without excuse. It just being able to, meet people online from all over the country, all over the world. That's truly just amazing phenomenon. No one would have ever thought of this 100 years ago, 50 years ago, even, what we're able to do today. And I think of my personal journey through my walk, YouTube has, been an avenue for me to connect with people, to watch videos, to meet with people, and to learn Hebrew. Because I've read King James Version my whole life, and never really got as far as I have within the last 3 or 4 years, just learning Hebrew and learning stuff online. And so it's just truly a blessing, just to be a part of these times, no matter what's going on. It's just, we have to really not become complacent. Sometimes I know I can take it for granted, because I'll spend my many hours in the Word and to get frustrated because we are sifting through Babel, through the English language, Greek language, and from Latin, all these different things. It can become overwhelming and confusing. And as you mentioned, a lot of people don't have the knack to want to sit there and listen to Kuf Zadi Shin Ra. They don't understand it. So it takes time to learn the alphabet, start off with the foundation and the fundamentals. And it mentions, I think in Jubilees, that Hebrew is the language that the angel taught Abraham, that this is the language from creation. And it's just the word inside of us is what causes us to be like the Messiah, like our Father, and having the word and the understanding and those teachings. So it's just a great honor to be a part of this experience of life, and to meet teachers such as yourself, Eric. So just real thankful for that.
Well, just to say, you mentioned that about Yeshua. Mel Gibson, when he did that movie The Passion, they had him speaking Aramaic. Andrew Gabriel Roth is a proponent of the Aramaic, and whether or not Yeshua ever spoke Aramaic or Greek or Latin, because the Romans were Latin, of course, spoke Latin, and they were the dominant military presence. It doesn't matter. I'm not trying to say he did or didn't, but in my estimation, Hebrew is kadosh. And the kadosh Shem is the meaning of the 22 letters, not just pick 4 of them. It's all 22. So if you know the 22, if you can really know the 22, that's knowing Elohim. So if that's true, then Yeshua is going to be speaking the purest form of Hebrew that's possible. And as my understanding, Aramaic is kind of a one-off, a kind of a blend with some other cultural languages, idioms, street vernacular, common lingua franca, you might say, but only the Hebrew is kadosh. That's my take on it. Kurt, you were about to say something, I think. No?
This image behind me is just, sorry, it just takes a second to click on and off the microphone. Is it showing up as a backwards noon Samic, or is it?
Oh,
how are you seeing it?
Now it is correct.
Because I don't have it backwards. It's a mirror effect because it's a camera, so it'll flip it. I have no control over that. So
here, move aside a little bit. Yeah, that's proper now.
See, there's one right behind me right now, and there's one in the upper right-hand corner. The one in the upper right-hand corner is backwards, so I don't know how it's going to show up when I record this.
Oh, the one I see that you over here in the middle of the screen is proper.
Yeah.
Either way, you know, the interesting thing about these letters is that this is the absolute perfect way to draw them, except once you understand the letter, you can turn it around, you can flip it around back, and it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. So whether it's backwards or not, or upside down or not, once you know what the letters are and what they mean, you know what they are.
I guess it's a matter of perspective too. If it's from the owl zone looking at the Earth, it looks one way. From our zone looking at the owl zone, it looks another way.
Well, there was that, I forget the name of it. There was that one stone they found. Well, I don't know if it was in Tennessee or New York, or they had it in the Smithsonian, I think. And for years they had published the thing upside down, and they thought it was some ancient Native American writing, Iroquois or something. And then all of a sudden you realize, what the heck? Turn it around and it's written in Paleo Hebrew, and I think it's the word Yehuda or something like that.
We're talking about. Sorry.
Go ahead.
We're talking about Emet and Hesed, Mishpat and Zadikah. The meek shall inherit the earth. How do we do these things? It's one thing to just talk about them. How do we do them now? And I think that's what we were going to talk about today, but I don't know if that's, it seemed like that's where you're going at the beginning of this video, to be honest with you.
Let me jump aside from that. Well, let me address that and then I'll jump aside from it. The 4 words you just mentioned, I think it's in Proverbs. It says, Emet and Chesed. If you have them around your neck, they won't forsake you. And what does that mean? So I had made 2 little emblems, like military officers wear something on their collars. And sometimes people have little decorated things, you know, Western shirts have a little something on the little point of the collar here. And ornamentation, the Celts used to have, the men wore something called a torque. It was ran around, it was a piece of metal, went around their neck and had 2 knurls. And then people that are into, like the Society of Creative Anachronism, SCA, they would wear torques, but they might have dragon's head or skulls or round knurls or whatever it might be, ornamentation. Maybe sometimes it was braided, and that was standard attire for a Gaul, Gaul, somebody that lived in what's now France and Germany and that part of Europe. So what does it mean if you have Emet and Chesed, truth and kindness around your neck? They won't fail you. Solomon, writing the book of Proverbs, was collecting sayings, wise sayings, philosophical isms, truths. So there's something about, even though in the American United States culture of the 21st century, it's like tell lies of misinformation and be a big jerk and you'll succeed. Well, it's a damn lie, I tell you. Compared to what Solomon said, truth and kindness. So regardless of this, whether it's the American way, it's just not true. Truth and kindness is where success is. And somehow the challenge, the obstacle course of life is to be confronted. There's this story I heard on the radio. It was a horrible story back in the 70s. It was a Christian radio station. There was a football player, Christian man, young man, and he had been praying. This is the story that he told on the interview. He had been praying that he wanted to be an honest man. Dear Lord, help me be, make me be. May I be an honest man. Well, he was an end receiver, and it was a championship game, and the quarterback threw him the football, and he dove for it, and as he caught it, he knew that he didn't catch the ball, he trapped the ball on the ground, and the referee throws up his hand, touchdown, they would win the game. It was right near the end of the game, and instantly in his mind, he knew, honest or not, truth or not, he knew he didn't catch the ball. He knew it wasn't a fair, legitimate touchdown, and he had a split second. It's one of those things where time probably feels like an expanse of all this time, but you only have a moment of time. Instantly, he had to make the decision. Is he going to be honest or not? And he had to jump up and tell the ref, no, I did not catch this ball. It's not a fair touchdown. And everybody in the stands went from cheering, woo, yay, we win, to, what? You fool, shut up. And everybody then hated him. They went from loving him to hating him in an instant. And here he was giving this interview on the radio and saying, I might have been glorious for a moment, and then I would be forgotten, but I had to live with that the rest of my life. Why would Elohim provide such a terrible challenge? Oh, I want to be an honest man. Make me an honest man. No, he's not going to make you an honest man. He'll give you the opportunity to be an honest man, a righteous man, a brave man, a good man. Everything in life is a challenge with what we will do with it. And even though some will scoff and mock and scorn and say we were fools, by the time we end our life and we stand in front of the judgment seat where we will be rewarded for what we did, who we are, what we chose, what we determined, will wear our life for eternity. Truth and kindness will not fail you. Every opportunity to choose truth and kindness.
You know, I got a friend right now who's literally dying of cancer. And she believes that her only opportunity to get this thing turned around is to do kindness. Like, she needs to die to herself and get out there and give to others. Whatever that means, whatever that takes. And even if Yah doesn't rescue her, it doesn't matter, because she's spent her entire life. She's only 48 years old, 46 years old. And she believes that the cancer that she has is as a result of constantly looking at herself and putting herself up on that pedestal. You know, she's just was reading in the scriptures about how, and you and I were talking about this past week, you know, and the meek shall inherit the earth. What does that mean? What's meek? And that's very similar to mercy, right? The words mercy and meek are very. She asked me what does meek mean in Hebrew, and you and I were talking about that on the phone, and they look identical words. So, you know, this is kind of what we were going to go off on our talk today. So,
well, you know, this movie that I mentioned called Human. You know, it's one thing to be so present-minded in your life that it's all about you. Some call that narcissist. In other words, what am I getting? How do I like it? How do I look? I mean mine. I need this. I want that. There's a certain giving of kindness. In fact, even the word love in Hebrew, aleph, hey, bet, hey. Aleph is a prefix letter that means I am or I will. Hey suffix is to express, or this is how it's manifest. And the two letters in between spelled hey bet, you look that up in the dictionary, it means to give. So literally the word love in Hebrew means this is me giving. Giving what? Well, what you choose to give, how you give, even if it's not received or identified properly, you're still responsible for what you give. The reality of your own being engaged with the one who sees and knows all, Elohim, who will bring you to account for every determination, every decision. I heard a fellow had died and went to heaven, stood at the real thing, stood at the judgment somehow, if such a thing were possible, but in his world, that's what happened. And he was asked a question: did you learn to love? What? You didn't give me a chance to love. Those guys were on my back, this person, my wife, by golly, circumstances. No excuse. Did you learn to love? What does that mean? You got to answer it for yourself. But if you were standing there and some angel confronts you before you walk in, did you learn to love? If not, you're going back. get back in your body, even if it's busted up in an accident now, or you tried to suicide yourself, or whatever happened. The point is, why are we here? What does it mean to learn to love? What does it mean, truth and kindness? The other two words, mishpat and zadikah. Mishpat is the word for translated as judgment or right ruling or justice. And the word zadikah is translated righteousness, but it also means victory, deliverance, and salvation. And I believe it's in Psalms around 85 or 89 or something. It says that mishpat and zadikah are the foundation of the throne of Elohim. His throne is built, is poised, is founded on mishpat and zadikah, which means his business, his only business, is to make sure that whatever goes around comes around. That's mishpat. A man's way is returned on his own head. And that if you do righteousness, you get victory, deliverance, and salvation, because it's the same word. Righteousness begets righteousness. Truth and kindness, if you mishpat, balance the scales, even though you might get a bunch of bad stuff coming at you, provoking you not to do truth and kindness is an expression of righteousness, which will bring you victory, deliverance, and salvation. So for one to buy into the consciousness of the kingdom of heaven might come at the expense of other, you might say, philosophies of success. What is success? In fact, again, on the movie, they interviewed some people, what about money? It's like, oh boy, if you have money, you can be comfortable, you can have whatever you want, you can blah, blah, blah. But when you get to the end of your life, what if you hadn't engaged the challenges that come through want and poverty and need and pain? And oh gosh, are you going to be worse off for not having engaged the struggle of life on the face of the earth? Gosh, that sets up this whole different perspective, a whole different conversation of what's the purpose of life? How many years must we endure these hardships? Is maybe you put in 40 and it's like, okay, I did my time, I passed the test, get me out of here. Maybe 20. Maybe even by 100, you haven't yet even engaged the challenge.
It's like taking statistics in college. I went to a business school and I happily took the D in statistics. Just get it past me. Yeah.
I took statistics also. It was a psychology curriculum, but oh man, physiological psychology. That was the big scary one, ugly one. And interesting enough, physiological psychology. How does the brain work? And they've investigated and done all this analysis and figured it out. You had to learn all these, I guess they were Latin words, connecting certain nerves of stimulus and response and processing. And when I was getting a low C at the midterms, like, oh, this class, it was really intimidating. And I met a couple of girls who were excited to learn this stuff. And they go, woohoo, this is a lot of fun. This is a challenge. And it's like, yeah, I should change my attitude. Here these people are, the professors offering me on this silver platter, all this wonderful information that for centuries people never knew. And now people are figuring it out. How is the human body made? How does consciousness work? How does the brain turn a perception into a behavioral response? So, wow, this is great. And when I changed my attitude, I ended up with a high B. My attitude changed how I was able to learn, changed everything. Whatever circumstances were handed, you might look at this, oh, why learn Hebrew? We've been trying to say why learn it, because it's an expression of Elohim's mind, his heart. It's what he made. It's how the universe is built. It's the DNA of, you might say, Yeshua. It's the word, and Yeshua is the word made flesh. And there are all these reasons. And if they're not good enough reasons, well, maybe we'll find some more reasons. I was looking in Judges 5.
Before you go, let me stop recording and start again because we're at the hour mark.
Okay, well, here, throw it back out. Hey, what happened to Sean and Xavier and Casper? Or did they have anything they wanted to say? Are they still with us?
Yeah, no, we're here. No, I'm just soaking it all in.
I don't know at all what to say.
Yeah.
It's just like, I don't know.